Hey guys, Wayne Philmore here, and I'm actually doing this broadcast as a response video to talk about the incident that happened with Cat Williams. If you guys don't know about the situation, you guys can actually go to news.google.com, type in Cat Williams' name right now at this present time, and the current story about his situation will pop up. If you can't find the story there, you can find out what happened with Cat Williams on TMZ. But just a description of the incident that occurred. Cat Williams was in Georgia and he was giving away money and participating at a school in the projects. And there happened to be a kid who was antagonizing them, and he actually provoked a fight with Cat Williams. Cat had told the kid that he could fight him around the corner. So Cat and the young boy go around the corner, and that's when things started getting crazy. Cat hits the kid in the face, and the fight starts to happen. Cat and the little boy wrestle each other to the ground. The little boy puts Cat Williams in what looks like a Chris Benoit chokehold, and some adults broke up the fight. I actually want to show you guys what happened, but I don't want to take too long. Let me see if I can find the fight so I can show it to you guys right now. So that's pretty much what happened. So I just wanted to give my opinion on the situation while I'm loading this video for you guys to see. Now, I want you guys to see the full video for the sheer reason that the first video that came out a couple hours prior to this, a lot of people were making assumptions off of a video that had gaps in it that only lasted for about 39 seconds, that didn't show the entirety of what happened in that situation. And so I actually made a prediction that it was in fact the kid or the kids that were antagonizing Cat Williams to make the decision of punching this kid in the face like he did. And lo and behold, the full video came out today, and I actually think that was the full video plus or minus a few seconds edited. So the full video came out. I want you guys to see it. Oh, I don't know if he's going to show the fight or what. So if you guys just saw that video, maybe some of you guys are just now tuning in or what, but from the video, we can see exactly what happened. This is a full video, plus or minus a small snippet of it being edited out from my point of view. From my view, I think it was edited. And so we see that Cat Williams did hit the kid first, but the kid was antagonizing him. He probably felt like he was going to get jumped. And like I've been saying, we also not only have to look at the point in fact that, yeah, Cat Williams is a 42-year-old grown man. Yeah, he does have a successful career, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that he doesn't get scared. That doesn't mean that he's indestructible. And that doesn't mean that these kids have a right just because of his sight, his size, or his career, or his popularity, or his fame, or his finances. They actually have the right to disrespect him. These kids are kids nonetheless, and they need to respect their elders. And my point of view, in my own personal unbiased factual opinion, I actually think that Cat Williams did a good job at defending himself, laying down the law. And I mean, obviously in real life, I mean, if there weren't any cameras rolling, or that little boy had stepped up to a man who was, uh, you know, probably 2 times bigger than him and wider than him in size, he would have got his butt handed to him. You can't be going around challenging grown men like you are a grown man. And allegedly, the little boy is around 15 to 17 years old, supposedly in the 7th grade. That's another thing. You can't be going around thinking you are the man because you're 15 in 7th grade or 16 in 7th grade. And because even though you are bigger than your supposed prey, that doesn't mean that the person you're picking on isn't going to fight back. I actually commend Cat for throwing the first punch, but at the same time, yeah, he could have made a better decision. He could have walked away. But the way people are, the way, as a matter of fact, the way niggas are, um, no matter what he did, niggas would always said, well, he walked away from a 15 or 17-year-old and he's a 42-year-old grown man. You can't let anybody punk you like that. I can see it now. And now that he did hit him, now the story is, oh, he hit a minor, he hit a child. And all throughout the videos, we keep seeing neurological linguistic programming. Cat Williams gets into a fight with a 17-year-old boy. Even in the title of the video, it says 17-year-old, 7th grader. Cat Williams got into a fight with a child. It's the same wordplay they were using in the Trayvon Martin case. George Zimmerman shot a child. He shot a kid. Well, Cat Williams, um, I actually commend him because at the exact point in time when that 16, 17, 15, however old this minor was, decided to get into the face of a grown man, he stepped into adulthood at that moment. And Cat Williams did what a grown man would do. You can't step up to a grown man and not think nothing is going to happen to you. And if he did think that was the case, now he found out. But now Cat Williams has to worry about going back to jail. He's on parole. He had about 2 cases so far open on him because he had similar events where incidents like this occurred and things got violent. So he's going to have to go before a judge on Thursday. Supposedly, I think he's going to go before a judge, or people are going to be investigating. You can actually find out the story by going to TMZ and get the story there too. They'll probably have way more accurate information than me. I'll put them down as a source of reference in the description box when the video is finished. But this ties into the topic of disobedient teenagers. Now, over the last 20 to 25 years, there's been a 100% increase in teen violence, school shootings, teen pregnancy, black on black crime. Cat Williams was going down to the black community where he was trying to give back to the black youth. And it's not only a shame that Cat got into a fight with this kid, but it's even more of a tragedy or a freaking travesty that a celebrity goes to the hood to give back, and this is how the hood responds by getting into a fight with somebody who's trying to help them out of their circumstances and out of the situation. And it wasn't the adults that was wilding out; it was the kids that was wilding out against the adult. So a lot of people have a lot of misconcepted views or maybe I guess they have a progressive mindset when it comes to how to deal with these things, especially from a biblical perspective. A lot of people will often bring up the verse in Deuteronomy that says that disobedient children should be put to death. And they say, oh, well, that's a harsh verse. That's such a cruel verse. How could a loving God say that? Well, just from the video I showed you guys, this is what happens when you don't put disobedient kids to death, disobedient teenagers to death. I honestly think, in my own humble, unbiased, factual opinion, disobedient teenagers need to be made a very good example of. And it's come to the point where they are not afraid of authority. Why? Because the punishment we're giving these teenagers are not severe enough. And so they say, oh, well, I'm going to go, I'm going to rob this bank, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I'm going to get out in about 10, 20 years. I'm going to get out in about 4 or 5 years, et cetera, et cetera. Going to jail and doing big time doesn't scare these kids. They're going to jail. They're making friends with the criminals in jail. They're all looking out for each other in jail. And so they're living better lives in jail than they do in the outside or on the outside. And so these kids aren't afraid of going to jail. These kids aren't afraid of going to prison. These kids are not afraid of doing big time. Now, probably what these kids probably might be afraid of is if they are being put to death. If you go over to, I think it's Singapore, drug dealers are put to death. We need to put criminals to death. There should not be a prison system. There should be, you get a beating, you get a fine, you get put to death, or maybe some other type of punishment where they do hard manual labor. But putting these people in jail, putting these teenagers in jail and in prison, that's not going to solve anything because they're not afraid of that. The Bible says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. We also took God out the school system, and it's ironically funny that around the time we started taking God out the school system, teen violence, school shootings, teen pregnancy, black on black crime rose at a very high percentage. And a lot of people don't think there's a correlation, but there actually is, because when we took biblical values out of the school system, we also took them out of society. Now, what do we see? The LGBT agenda is being brought forth, it's being manifested. And for people who think there is no agenda, there is an agenda. But you just don't think there's an agenda because you have successfully been converted over to the losing team. A couple of days ago, it's been reported that Disney, which is the parent company of Marvel, wants to boycott Georgia in response to House Bill 757, which is the religious rights bill. This bill will actually give pastors and religious officers the power to freely disagree to do wedding ceremonies if they don't feel up to the task, if they disagree with that person's lifestyle, instead of pastors and preachers and etc. going to prison if they don't perform these wedding acts. So a bill is about to be passed supposedly in Georgia. It's called House Bill 757, a religious rights bill. You guys can look that up on any government website. And the religious bill is in favor of pastors and preachers who don't want to marry people of the LGBT community, which is fine, because if there's a pastor who doesn't want to marry you, find a pastor or a preacher who does want to marry you instead of taking away their rights. You know, a lot of these people say that it's very unloving for people to say that they can't get married. I'm not saying that gay people can't get married. I disagree to it, but they certainly can get married. But if you want to force somebody to marry you, that is hateful, evil, and wicked. And the homosexuality and the lesbianism and the transgender society is coming down hard on traditional family biblical values. And one of the biggest reasons why we're also seeing such a high increment in crime, teen violence, school shootings, teen pregnancy, black on black crime, and the whole 9 yards is because biblical family values are being taken out. What do I mean when I say biblical family values are taken out? Well, traditionally, the man was the one who was the breadwinner. He was the head of the house. Then you had the woman who was the provider for the children, and the children were being raised up by either the mother or the father. If the child was a girl, the mother would go and she would take the child under her wing and show that child how to be a woman, and the father would take the son and show the young man how to become a man. And we don't see it in society today. So we had these little hoodlums, these little monsters running around doing all types of evil. And it's really funny to me how people think that system doesn't work, but it's been a system that's been working for hundreds of thousands of years, and now we're having something new. Although homosexuality in and of itself is not new, but whenever we see homosexuality manifest, we see other type of sexual behaviors manifest as a result of it. Sure, just like evolution does not purposely threaten Christianity. But if evolution is true, then other things of this view have to be true as a result of it. And so, as a result of homosexual behavior being accepted, lesbianism and all these other behaviors have to be accepted. And so, the slippery slope fallacy is not a fallacy because it actually becomes more factual as time goes on. We're starting to see that more and more people of different sexual lifestyles and sexual behaviors want their rights. NAMBLA, North American Man Boy Association, Man Boy Love Association, they actually want their rights more and more. And there's going to come a day when they possibly could get their rights if we go down this same slippery slope where morality is subjective and we base all of our uh, actions off of our emotions and how we feel. This is the most anti-intellectual age, not just of Christianity, but of the world, of America, where even now we think that radical Islam isn't really radical Islam. We think that Islam teaches love, peace, and happiness. Could show you hundreds of verses in the Quran that commands Muslims to kill the infidel. And even Bill Maher, who's an atheist, prominent dominant atheist, will tell you there is not a verse in the Bible that makes modern Christians today go out and inflict our view of justice on the world. And Christians never were to do that. It was always done by the government. So it wasn't like a group of people just band together and we're like, oh my gosh, these people are doing evil, let's kill them. Justice was always inflicted or done by a government. God likes government. The Bible actually tells us to obey the government as long as the laws they're giving us also cohere with God's law. God actually wants you to follow the government as long as they're giving you good godly laws and values that don't go against his laws. So what do I think we should do with disobedient teenagers? Well, number one, I think that all Americans should exercise their right to get a gun. If you don't have a gun, you can actually go to the police websites of your state or your county, and they should have an application for you to fill out. You fill it out, you bring it to the police station or wherever the application tells you to bring it to. You give them the money order so you can take your test. And after you take your test, you should be able to get your license for your gun. That is how you do it. So now you have no excuse. You should be a gun owner in America. Just for the sure right that if the government has guns, you probably want guns too. They talk about we should have, what's the word I'm looking for? Gun control. Who's in control? I mean, who's controlling the guns? What are you talking about? I mean, basic gun control logic is if I have a gun and a criminal has a gun, and then you take away my gun, then that should stop crime. But criminals are not going to go out and get gun licenses anyway. That is stupid. That's one thing we should do. Why should we get guns also? Well, a lot of these disobedient, disrespectful teenagers and kids are basically the main ones doing the crime. As a matter of fact, the most prominent and dominant people doing the crime today, and I can actually say this with no shame because I am black, are black teenage males. Black teenage males are doing the most crime, but they make up such a small percentage of the population. Why is this? Because most black men do not have a father. That is statistically proven and true. And for every black male that you meet, maybe 1 out of 4 that you do meet might still have a father in his life. Why? Because when we walk away from God's traditional values and certain restrictions for our lives, then we start to walk in chaos. You guys probably don't know this, but Aleister Crowley, who was basically one of the head, or he was basically friends with Anti-LaVey, leader of the Church of Satan. Uh, Aleister Crowley actually said that the family unit is enemy number one. So people coming against biblical traditional family values actually literally are antichrist in their thinking. They may not deliberately be antichrist, but that is where this all originated from. People who didn't like God's way of thinking and God's way of living, they oppose God's way of living and thinking, and they are 100% against it. And I am 100% against them. I may be a nice guy, but there are some things that I dreadfully and wholeheartedly, with all my mind, being, and spirit, I'm just against. I want to show you guys number one, the verse that the people are referring to when they say the Bible says that you should stone disobedient children or teenagers, and it absolutely does, and I stand behind it. And before I show you guys that verse, I just want to end my monologue in just saying that yes, the Bible does say that we should stone disobedient teenagers, but if you look at the results of what we're seeing today, oh heck yeah, the Bible is right. And now because we're going into emotionalism and we're going off based off how we feel, or we were at least going off of how we feel. I don't know what people are doing now. It's actually resulted in more crime than what we should be seeing. I mean, if we were living by God's laws and God's standards and things, society, in America at least, would be a whole lot better. Let me see. I'm going to share my screen with you guys. So this is the verse people are referring to when they're saying that the Bible says that you should stone disobedient teenagers. This is Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 18. It says, if a man have a stubborn and rebellious son, which will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, in that when they have chastened him, will not hearken unto them, then shall his father and his mother lay hold on him and bring out the elders of his city and unto the gate of his place. And they shall say unto the elders of his city, this our son is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. And all the men of his city shall stone him with stones, that he die. So shalt thou put evil away from among you, and Israel shall hear and fear. I 100% stand with that. I am in agreement with that. And I think it is 100% just to do something like that to even to the kids and the teenagers and whoever today. Why? Because look at what happens when we don't have punishments as severe as these. We also have to understand that how we feel about a certain punishment does not take away from the fact that the person who committed the crime, justice demands a penalty for that crime. So we may feel a certain way about somebody committing a crime, or we may feel a certain way about somebody's punishment they will receive for a crime. But nonetheless, if they did do the crime, they have to face the proper punishment. And the proper punishment, depending on what they did, does not care about their emotions. Then you have Isaiah chapter 3, verse 12. And this verse actually prophesies of what a nation that turns its back on God will go through. And it says, let me see a good version. New International Version, non-inspired version that I don't really like that. It was made by a lesbian. King James Bible says, as for my people, children are their oppressors, and women rule over them. O my people, they which led thee causes thee to err, and destroy the way of thy path. So this is just a prediction of what a nation without God will look like. Children are their oppressors, and women rule over them. This is what we see in the black community a lot, and now this is becoming more and more prevalent among different people groups. We're seeing Italian families, Irish families, Hispanic families are being separated because the mother and the father of these children are just having one night stands, having babies out of wedlock and fornication. And as a result, we're having children being brought up without mothers or fathers, and they're getting a very skewed view of what a family unit will look like, and they're not getting poured into psychologically, spiritually, and mentally or physically, like they should if they had both parents together. Even the guy, I think the guy who made Dolce and Gabbana, I got to look this up some more. I don't want to give you guys any false information, but there's a gay couple who runs a fashion line, and they themselves are gay, but they said they would never have a child with them being gay because they understand that a child needs both their mother and father. You guys can Google that or look that up, and fact check behind me, and you guys can get the actual story on that. So yeah, it is true. It is just that teenagers and disobedient children, they should be stoned and put to death. But in God's loving mercy and tenderness, he actually sent his son on the cross to die for us 2,000 years ago to do away, or to fulfill. I don't want to say do away because Jesus said he didn't come to do away with the law. He came to fulfill it. God sent his son on the cross to fulfill those laws, to perfectively or perfectly live a life according to those 600 plus laws, knowing that me, you, Cat Williams, that kid who was fighting Cat Williams, your kid, my kids, and any other person on the face of the planet who has ever lived in past, present, and future will never, ever perfectly live out those laws. He lived out those laws in his own life, gave up his life for my sins and for your sins, died on the cross and was resurrected, so that even though it is just for us to do that to a disobedient teenager, it's so much better to give us grace and mercy. And in my own humble, unbiased, factual opinion, I actually think that if a person does not want grace, we should give them death. If a teenager goes against grace, if a teenager has a certain amount of strikes, when it comes to them committing certain crimes, and depending on what the crime is, we absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, need to put this kid to death. Not saying that the people should do it. This should be mandated by the government. And sure, there certainly are kids and stuff like that who are, well, I know there was one kid who got a life sentence, but depending on the severity of the crime, we honestly do need to put some teenagers and kids and whoever to death, because that was an example to the other teenagers not to do these things. But because we're too soft on these teenagers, and because we're going against God's laws and God's biblical values, and we're going outside of traditional marriage, we're actually doing exactly what the Church of Satan wants to do. Aleister Crowley said that the family unit is enemy number one, and one of the first laws, or one of the rules of Satanism, or actually this was actually made up by Aleister Crowley too. One of the first rules of Satanism is do as thou wilt. That will be the whole of the law, meaning you should do whatever you want to do. So when we start rejecting God's biblical values and moral objective standards, then as a result, although we may not intentionally want to do this, when we give up God's laws and plans for our lives, automatically, by default, we go into moral relativism, satanic atheism, and Aleister Crowley satanic doctrine. So that is my view on disobedient teenagers, the Cat Williams situation, and how I think we should respond. I think if a child disrespects you, and if they get physical with you, you put them down. All right. This is Wayne Philmore. And until next time, have a very, very beautiful day, and good luck and good night. Share the video around. Like this video if you do like it. If you don't like it, hey, feel free to give me a thumbs down and tell me what you think about my comments and my thoughts below. All right. Talk to you guys later.